All right, we're doing class 10 now, which is about social connection. And this is another factor that we've found is highly correlated with people's happiness levels, inner peace, and all the different positive areas that we're looking to measure. And researchers used an exercise in workplaces where they had people send one positive email each time they opened their email browser to someone else in the workplace. And what they found is it increased productivity, it increased general levels of happiness, reduced sick days, all the different measurable things that bosses want to measure, just from the mere fact that people in their work had to stop for a minute, look at their list of contacts when they open their computer, and send some positive email of praise or affirmation to one of their coworkers. And it was deepening the social connection between people. And I just want to talk for a minute about this principle, which has to do, again, with positivity. There are people in our lives, coworkers, family members, they do good things, things that we appreciate, things that we don't appreciate. And so we have a whole mix of things we can choose to focus on with them. And one of the ways that the research is saying here you can really deepen your relationship with people is through focusing on the positive things that they do, the positive aspects of their personality, the things you respect about them, the things you appreciate about them. And this really creates a large ripple effect for people's happiness as they notice that their positive social interactions are increasing, not in a passive way of hoping to get more friends, but in a more positive way of taking those relationships we already have, perhaps they're more shallow, more acquaintance relationships, and just adding some positivity, focusing on the positive and expressing that to the other person. And one of the classes we're going to be doing upcoming is something we call the Ultimate Relationship Program. And that's all about creating these positive relationships with people. It's highly correlated with happiness, and we know that people that are feeling depressed, feeling anxious, tend to have problems in their relationships, and it's a cycle. As I'm getting down, as I'm not feeling really good about myself, I tend to distance myself from people. I tend to be more irritable. I tend to be more negative. And as those relationships go down, become more difficult for me, it starts making me feel even worse. So there's a cycle there. This is really connected. And so we're going to be improving your levels of happiness through these other techniques we've talked about, but we can do it directly through having you proactively go out of your way to do one positive move towards another person each day. And so this can be with an email, it can be with text, it can be verbally. But what happens is what you're trying to do is stretch that muscle that notices the negative, which is what we mostly tend to do. It's what the average group tends to do, is scan the environment, notice the negative. And we're going to exercise that positive muscle that starts moving you towards thriving in your relationships. And so the exercise here, the prescription here, is once a day, send someone a positive message, whether it's an email, whether it's a text, whether it's verbally, of something that you really appreciate, something that you really respect. And as we expand this concept, and we do a whole other workshop on it, one of the things that I wanted to share with you guys is that when you do this mentally and internally, it can really shift your relationships with people. And I recently was working with a couple, and every time they'd have an issue, they'd engage each other from that place of negativity, from that place of complaint, from that place of I'm not feeling very good about you. And if you just think about it for a minute, when you've been around someone in your life and they're sending you those negative vibes, right? They're looking at you as someone who's not really living up to what you're supposed to be doing. They're negative about you. They're critical of you. Your natural human response is negative towards them. And it's the same thing with us. When we have to work through an issue, when we have a relationship that's difficult, if we approach that person from that place of I'm focusing on what you're doing wrong, you're going to have problems with that. This can be with coworkers, family, friends. And so the second thing to be practicing here is before you engage someone and you want to resolve something, before you do that, step back. That's what I was working with this couple. Take a moment and focus on everything you love about this person. Focus on everything you appreciate about this person. Focus on all the positive that they do for you. Focus on everything you have in your life that you didn't have before you had this person in your life. Again, this could be someone you're intimate with. It can be someone you're working with. It doesn't matter. It's about relationships. When you're standing close to or in the presence of someone who respects you and appreciates you, your natural response is so much different. It's so different. It feels so good to be around someone who respects you and appreciates you and is looking at you as someone who's really, positive rather than someone who's focusing on the negative. And so being able to use that on an emotional level with people, as I approach someone, even though I have something I want to deal with them, I have something that I want to work out with them that's, could fall in the realm of negative, my overall feel emotionally is positive because I'm thinking about all the positive that they bring to the table. And it's better to take a time out, I often tell people, to get into that place rather than try to address it from that negative place. And so the two things I want to practice here. First is just a general, find something positive each day and connect with another person. It can be really light. It can be funny. Your presentation yesterday was hilarious. Really appreciate it. Made my day. Very simple. Doesn't have to be a big thing. It starts shifting your chemistry. It starts shifting the way you think. It starts shifting the way your brain is wired to start looking for positive in other people. So we started talking about positive in yourself, in self-acceptance. We're talking about positive in your life in general, gratitude. And now we're focusing on having that positive approach to other people in terms of your social connection. Send something positive each day, number one. And number two, if you have to deal with something that's a little bit difficult, practice what we call positive unconditional regard. Positive unconditional regard. It doesn't matter. I think you're great. Okay? It's unconditional. I have positive regard for you unconditionally. That's such a great feeling to be around someone who has positive unconditional regard for you. They think of you positively. That doesn't mean I don't have something I need you to do a little bit differently. I'd really appreciate that. It'd make me really happy if we could work on this. But I have positive unconditional regard for you. And if you can do that mentally and emotionally before you step into a difficult conversation, you're going to start seeing a lot of these things shift. And that takes practice. It's a lot of internal work here that we're talking about, but it's all very doable.